My passion and mission is to equip people with tools and practices for well-being. I believe being human is hard and we're all in it together, but there are so many things we can do to make it a little bit easier. One of the things I speak on a lot is self-compassion and learning to support yourself through hard times. It's not taught enough, in my opinion. And I didn't find it till I was in my 40s, and it would have made life a lot easier to find it earlier. There's a vast amount of clinical research on this topic. So I'll share some of that woven through as we go. But let's start with um, just this idea. Um, that being human is hard, but this idea of self-compassion. So let's imagine we're on this beautiful, I'm going to pretend we're in one of your homes in Europe, somewhere on this cobblestone walk. And we're following this woman down, walking down the street, and suddenly she falls in front of us. And her coffee spills and her bag empties, and it looks like she may be injured. She may have turned an ankle badly. Um, what do you do when you see somebody fall right in front of you? Can somebody chime in with what you do? What would you do for this woman?
Well, I would jump to kind of like, "Are you okay?"
Yes. Are you
Really,
okay?
yeah.
Exactly. What else would you do?
Just try to. You want me to help you to stand
Yeah,
up? Do you have any injury?
Yeah, help pick up the stuff she lost and um, yeah, help her rise if she can.
exactly. It's beautiful. You are hardwired for compassion. In a split second, you take a compassionate action when you see another human in a struggle. Now, what do you do when it is you who has fallen? What are you saying to yourself? And what are you saying to these lovely people that come along to help you? What do you say when you fall?
I
What
can
do you
go
say?
again, but I'm so embarrassed. I'm so silly. Oh my god.
I'm so embarrassed. I'm such a klutz. I'm always in a hurry. I shouldn't have worn those shoes. I'm such a mess. This is so embarrassing. And then what do you say to the beautiful human who's trying to help you? And do you say, go on, I'm fine.
It's
Fine.
like, no worries. I'm okay.
I'm
I
okay.
just broke a leg.
I
It's
just
fine.
broke a
I can
leg.
keep on going.
Exactly. Exactly. You go on with your day, really. I'm fine. Exactly. So that is just an introduction to, the things we do a million times a day to not show ourselves any self-compassion. And as educators and people influencing education on our planet, you are so focused on helping other people, and you are so focused on improving this aspect of humanity. And yet, when we're hurting, we deny our own pain, we deny ourselves, we don't receive help well. Our inner critic starts spinning in our brain. And soon we realize I'm burned out, I'm resentful, I'm alone, and I'm in pain. So, self-compassion is kind of a theme of what I want to weave into our practices today. That helps us kind of context where we're going. One of the first practices, whoops, I'm sorry. Let's see. Let me make sure I'm sharing the right window. One of the first practices is called a compassionate pause. And this practice has three elements. You put your hands on your heart or somewhere on your body that feels right to you, hugging yourself, um, arms on your legs. Some people like to just hold their face, like maybe a grandmother held your face when you were a little child. All of those are beautiful. Just connect with yourself in touch. And then saying your own name out loud is best. This has been researched to release oxytocin, which is the hug hormone, dopamine, serotonin, positive neurotransmitters, and then something encouraging. So it would look like, Ginger, this is hard. You've got this. And that it's as simple as that. And that has been shown to release the same positive neurotransmitters as a hug from someone you love. So our brains don't care where it's coming from. In fact, some argue it's even more powerful if you can show it to yourself. The image on the screen is of a physician because this has been widely studied among physicians. In one of the studies in an emergency room, half of the physicians were told to just status quo, do your job as normal. Half were told to take this 5-second compassionate pause in between patients. And as you can imagine, the outcome of the study, the reason I share it is because the patients reported a more compassionate physician and better outcome. And there is some theory that the health outcomes of the patient improved. Heart rate decreased, blood pressure decreased. They actually felt like their physician was listening and present with them. And the only thing that changed was the 5-second compassionate pause. And so this kind of practice can be woven into your day. I find myself, it felt a little awkward at first when I was learning this work because I was a self-loather and I was cracking the whip on myself to do more. And you're not doing enough and you're not good enough and people don't like you enough and you need to do more. And so this felt odd at first. So if it feels odd to you, just embrace that a little bit but it's such a gentle presence with yourself. So it's just, Ginger, you're going to be okay. Right? It can be that simple. I'm going to share a couple practices and then we'll break and talk about them. Another one is I call it cattle paths, but it's a reminder of neural pathways in our brain. So this is Kansas in the middle of the United States in this picture. This is my grandfather was a cattle rancher. So there are acres and acres called the Flint Hills of Kansas that are just cattle land, cattle grazing. But this path that you see is worn down because the cows go to the pond the same way every day. Meanwhile, up on this hill that we can't see in the picture, but just to the left is this glorious overlook with this huge valley and this most beautiful sunsets. But the cattle never see it because they just go the same ugly path, toe to tail, to the pond every day. And our brain gets like that sometimes. These ruts are called neural pathways in our brain, and it's a repeated thought. So things like, I'm not smart. I'm not doing enough. Nobody likes me. I made a mistake. I won't be successful. This doesn't matter. My work doesn't matter. Right? The more we follow that same path of thinking, we get a rut into our brain that forms a neural pathway that turns into a belief. So a belief is just a repeated thought that formed a neural pathway. And so part of our work is to switch it up, right? Is to leave that old pattern of thinking, that old way of going to the pond, that old way of talking to myself, and try the opposite, try a different route. Can anyone give an example of either the compassionate pause where you could use that in your own life or this neural pathway kind of reframing a thought? Does anyone have an example coming to mind?
I can share one that it's not necessarily well-being, maybe at a relational level, and it's about not listening. And then how I noticed that not listening when someone was speaking to me while I'm working, I get irritated, and it's so silly, even when I'm doing not something so important, like just reading emails and stuff like that. So now when that happens, I know that that's something that happens to me, that's a neural path that I'm always going through when someone speaks to me while I'm focused. So rather, I lower the screen of my laptop and I change my body position towards the person that is speaking to change that habit into being able to listen whenever it's needed, because I cannot predict that.
That's a great example, David. Yes, and you're taking action to change something so that your brain rewires.
Mhm.
This is when I listen. When I turn away, when I close my laptop, that's a beautiful example of a new neural pathway you're forming. Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. Okay.
Uh, I had an experience like when you have to deal with departments, customs, or getting your visa and having to wait in line. And I just always thought, like, this is going to be horrible. I hate this. I'm going to get the worst person here to help me. Um, I fucking hate this, like, and it's just like you arrive irritated, you know that everyone else is irritated. You're like feeling that, but I had to do it. I had to go like every 3 months to renew my visa, and I had to kind of switch it up. I think that's like how I got into like well-being practices, because it was like this needs, I need compassion for myself and others that are actually working in this environment. And that's when I really saw like humans in a place, like doing funny human things, but trying to see the person behind the desk and everyone that is also waiting in line. And it actually made it was like entering a community, and this like kind of present moment of like, we are all in this together, and let's do this together in the best possible way.
So good.
Not easy, not easy. And it was always like a practice.
Beautiful. Perfect. Perfect example. Yeah, that this is going to be awful. That's a great example of a neural pathway. Like we're anticipating awful. And this might be fantastic. That's one of the practices we're going to talk about in a little bit, but I'll do it now because that is a perfect reframe. Our brain is protecting us by preparing us for the worst. It always will. And so nuancing our brain with what if it's fantastic? What if I meet these new people in line? What if we all band together and it's not miserable? We have to do that. We have to kind of take our brain to the other potential for good. And it's not that you're a negative person, it's that your brain will always default to negativity because it keeps us safe. Thinking the worst is going to happen keeps us safe. We just have to practice reminding ourselves it might not be so bad. We might have a different experience. Help me see this differently is a great practice too, of just help me see this differently right now because I'm prepared for it to be awful. Um, okay, tell me something, a couple of you, tell me something you can't do yet, like I can't run a marathon yet, or I can't play the piano yet. What can't you do yet?
Fixing my car.
I can't fix my car. What
I
else?
don't speak French yet.
I can't speak French yet. Um, See the difference? I'll just use those two examples right there. I can't fix my car. That's called a fixed mindset, that it's impossible. It's never going to happen, is how it sounds to my brain. And the yet adds possibility and hopefulness, right? Carol Dweck in the US is one of the leading researchers on growth mindset. And this is what she teaches. And it comes down to this simple word. I have a slide I'll show you. The power of yet, right? I can't ride my bike without the training wheels yet. So when you catch yourself with, I can't get funding for my project, I can't find the right connection for me to launch this initiative, just add yet to the end of your sentences, Y-E-T, and it brings in such potential. It opens up your brain to hope and possibility. And anytime we have hope, we find momentum and motivation. But when we have a fixed mindset that I can't do it and I'll never be able to, then our brain stops trying. So the power of yet is a tool for you. Add yet into your vocabulary. We'll go through a couple others. Okay, things we dread Things we dread, like going into something where is going to be a long wait time, frustration with bureaucracy. I'm going to have to jump through a lot of hoops. These are things that we create into monsters. We create this big monster of dread of, oh, this is going to be so painful and I don't want to do it. Maybe it's filling out a grant application or asking for funding. Those things come with this monstrosity of yuck with them. But it's really a mosquito. So a mosquito, we know these around the globe. They bite, they carry disease, they are a pain. But it's a little insect that we can swat and we can handle. We can handle the effect of a mosquito. So part of our work is to say, yes, this is going to hurt a little bit. This is not a fun task, but it's a mosquito, not a big monster. So this all or nothing thinking is kind of what our brain is so good at, of just making this huge thing of impossibility for us and dread. For example, I was working with a client and she had a horrible breakup from the person she thought she would be engaged and married to. And so she was devastated, and we worked through that. And 6 months later, another friend, a mutual friend, was getting married, and she was contemplating not going to the wedding because um, she might run into the ex. And so she had created this wedding as a monster. What if I see him? What am I going to say? He's going to be with somebody else. This is going to take me down. It's better just to not go. But then we talked about the regret of not being there for your friend's wedding and missing all of that. So we just turned it into a mosquito. Yes, you are going to see him. Yes, it's going to sting. Yes, it's going to be awkward. You're going to have some 3 seconds speechlessness. But what do you want to say and how do you want to handle it? And go in there with intention, and you're going to be okay. And I asked her if I could share this story because she ended up not seeing him through the ceremony. In the reception, in the bar line, she ran into him. They had a quick, "Hi, how are you? You look great. Good to see you." And later that evening, she met the man that she married. And had she not gone to that wedding, she would have missed this huge opportunity. So it's such a good example of creating this monstrous situation when really it's just going to be a little sting. Another one that is a fun one is this idea of the crab bucket phenomenon. So, legend has it, if you are putting crabs on a bucket on the beach, you don't have to put a lid on the bucket because the crabs won't let each other crawl out. So, crabs that are miserable in the middle of the bucket, we imagine that they are thinking, oh no, you're not getting out of here if I'm not getting out of here. If I'm getting boiled for soup tonight, you are too. And so this phenomenon is such a good teacher for nature for us because sometimes we have to check in with, am I trying to achieve something and some miserable crabs are pulling me down, but I'm going to go anyway? And then sometimes we have to check in, am I the miserable crab stuck in this situation and kind of pulling down the people that are getting ahead? Right? So there's an introspective opportunity with the crab bucket both ways. I want to hear from you. Is any of this, are you thinking of examples of where you might be in a crab bucket or a monster that could be in mosquito? What's coming to mind?
I hear lots in public education, like, we all went through it. It sucks, but just gotta stick it out. And I'm like, but why do we let the system continue like that?
Perfect example. Systems are great examples of crab buckets. Yep. Perfect example. Yeah. Why are we all miserable when we could work to get out of here and change it and not be stuck? Yeah. Any other examples? Anything you could apply yet to? in your work, in your mission?
I think that a good example for crab buckets in uh, probably in the social sector is the idea of the superhero that you have to suffer to achieve something great, right? You know, you have to, it has to cost you sweat and tears and blood and whatever to achieve something great. And probably that isn't the case, but we are expecting that, right? So this is a mixture between monsters and and
Yes,
crabs and everything.
exactly. Oh, exactly. Yeah. The pressure we put on ourselves, the pressure we put on each other. Yeah, that's such a good example of this. And they're all just the phenomenons of being human. And if we could just understand, okay, this is just my humanness, my ego, my passion, my clouded vision, my blind spots. We all have them. And if we could just kind of hold those more gently and vulnerably and admit to one another and work together, we could really move the needle towards love and compassion and well-being and healthier systems. Yeah. And I love your mission here of if we're all focused on well-being, we do create the arc toward well-being for teachers, for students, in all of our work. Okay, got a couple more.
Maybe I can share also one example of the crab bucket where I
Yes,
find myself being the one in the bottom.
yes,
Um, and it's just with daily work. It's just the stress of what it feels, not life, but it's really in social entrepreneurship and
yes.
running projects and looking for funding and all of this, and then feeling like it's never enough and there's always more to do. And I end up spreading this feeling of this anxiety around me.
Yep.
And at some point, I somehow self-regulate, and then I find that everyone around me is absolutely exhausted, and that it was actually a reaction to my own inner state that I didn't control on time, and I
Mhm.
ended up spreading, and now it's kind of a wave that comes back to me. So now I am the one that gets stressed, and then I pass it back again. So it's a never-ending cycle.
There's a psychology term for it of emotional contagion, which is like without words, my energy affects the energy of people around me. It's not necessarily what I'm saying or what I'm doing. It's my misery. My inner misery does seep out and affect the group. And organizational psychology has a lot of that, David, of if we all could realize, oh, I'm contributing to this um, and what's my role in it. But so oftentimes we want to blame somebody else for our misery. And that's kind of where we then get stuck. But thinking about, so just your example, David, if I'm stuck in the bucket of misery and things aren't aligning and I'm working so hard for something good for humanity, but it's not aligning because of systems or bureaucracy or lack of funding, then I will start to get miserable. And so then what do I need? What would bring me joy? Maybe it's just hope that I'm headed out of the bucket and back to the ocean soon. But that kind of just pause of introspection could change the attitude of the entire bucket, really. Because if you have a hope that it's going to get better, or I could change this one thing, or I find when I'm the miserable crab in the bottom of the bucket, one of the questions I have to ask myself is how do I make this fun and easy? And it feels like such a giant leap to make it fun and easy when it's so heavy and so hard. But just entertaining fun and easy usually leads me to like, okay, I'm going to put on music while I do this tax form, or I'm going to go sit in the sun while I write this report. It brings back the potential for ideas of how could I be less miserable?
Mhm. And what I've noticed that helps me is just to stop, because at some points it's just I'm unable to make that switch, and it's just okay. I just need to close the computer, go for a run, do something differently. I go play volleyball with friends, so that completely changes my mood. And after that, even at night, a new thought about the work might come, but now it's completely like, okay, tomorrow I'll be able to deal with this.
Yes.
Just acknowledging that I cannot always be able to be at my best, and sometimes I just need to rest.
Perfect. I'm going to give you an acronym. This wasn't in my presentation for today, but it's in my book. So I'm going to give this to you because you just said the word stop, David, and it's so good. So acronym stop. So stop, pause. The T is take a break. The O is observe. And then the P is proceed accordingly. So stop, take a break, observe, and then proceed. And the observe is what is going on here? Where did I get so off track? Why am I out of alignment? Why is this so miserable? And then when you get an answer from the observe, you proceed in a new direction. So I'm glad you said the word stop because that can be a good acronym to keep for all of us. Stay handy in our files. Okay. The next one is an elevator ride. And this is a practice for when you're overthinking, when you are living in your brain and you hear that chatter or you hear the critic and you want to get away from the critic. The critic lives in our brain, not down in our heart. So when you hear that mental chatter, just imagine you take an elevator ride, you're leaving your brain and you're riding down to your heart. And if you've done soul work, you can go on down to your soul, whatever level feels good to you, where the truth lies, where love lies, where perspective is clearer. I do an elevator ride daily when because I get to overthinking. That's nervous chatter, the critic, all those feelings of you're not doing enough. None of that is really true if I go down and check in with my heart. My heart says, be love in the room. It's all going to be okay. You'll find a way. You're doing work that matters. So take an elevator ride, daily, monthly. You could do this as a formal assessment with yourself of like, okay, let's leave the mind for a little bit. What's the soul say? What's the soul say about these priorities or these initiatives? What's the soul say about the day that we have ahead of us? What's most important? Let's prioritize that. This is a good one for negativity. If you just notice you're stuck in some negativity, just take the elevator down and see what your heart says. Okay, we talked about this one earlier. It might be fantastic. So your brain will always default to worst case scenario. I find this like when I wake up in the morning with dread, like it's going to be a hard day. This is a great tool to shift because I think we wake up with like, oh, I got to remember to do that. And I didn't email this person back yesterday and I forgot to follow up on this thing. And so all of that floods you when you're first awake, and it's a horrible way to start the day. But laying in bed with, what if it's fantastic? What if this day is great? What if it all aligns? What if it goes differently than I expect it to? What if it's fun and easy? Again, this is a practice. Our brain will never do this for us, but the more we practice, it becomes a little more default state that you can access it more quickly. One of my favorite compassion practices comes from Buddhism, and it's called the second arrow. And this is the idea that life is hard and life will hand us hard stuff. And being human, as we talked at the outset, on this globe is super hard right now and complicated. That's hard enough. But then what we do to ourselves is shoot ourselves with a second arrow or a third or a fourth or a fifth, that somehow this is your fault. You created this because of that decision you made. You got yourself in this jam. And we're shooting ourselves all when we're already in pain. And so the practice is an invitation to stop doing that, to consider it, and the people that I've taught this practice to that use it, they will notice just this new consideration of, wait, I'm not doing that to myself anymore. I'm not doing that. This comes up a lot when a marriage ends, and I should have done this, and I could have done that, and if I'd been more, um, if I'd done more things, and it's so much laden in regret. That's second arrow stuff. The divorce is hard enough, and now, we're blaming ourselves. Um, I think this one comes up a lot in, if you're living in a system of oppression or looking at these unhealthy things we've put in the US, we're seeing it a lot right now of just not treating humans well at all with our current administration. And it's horrific. And so then the work becomes don't add to that pain by blaming yourself for it. So I offer you this practice if there's an opportunity to stop shooting yourself, tune into that, and give yourself some grace and love through the pain. This tool called Watch Your Own Movie is a beautiful one when you are facing maybe some self-doubt, maybe there's some self-blame, maybe there's something you did in your past that you're regretting or you didn't do that you're regretting. If you were going to a movie theater, cinema, and watching a movie of this character, you would be cheering the character on. You would be saying, you can do it. You can overcome this thing. You're about to have this great thing happen because we're in the audience and we see what's about to happen for this person. You would be cheering them on. They're in the scene, they're full of uncertainty, they're full of self-doubt, they're not sure they can go on. I mean, how many great pieces of literature and movies do we have that the hero in the story is about to give up, and in the audience we can see why they shouldn't. Do that for yourself. Watch your own movie. See yourself as a character that so wants to give up and throw in the towel. And what would you say to that character? Yes, she is facing uncertainty. Yes, he is in a jam or a pickle or a tough situation right now. But what would you say to them? And then say that to yourself. And then as you're watching that character, what does she need? What does he want? What is he longing for? You can see it when you're in the audience. So zoom out and watch yourself. I've got one more and then we'll talk about them. Find your expanders. This is the idea of looking for people who are doing what you so want to do, and you find them, and they expand your sense of potential. They expand your hope. So it doesn't have to be somebody you know or in your world, but somebody that has achieved or overcome or figured out a challenge similar to what you're trying to overcome or figure out. Let them expand you. The other way this practice can be used is to look at the people in your life. Who makes me feel like I constrict and who makes me feel like I can expand? Who makes me feel like I can breathe freely and who shuts me down? Who gives me energy and who drains my energy, right? We want to find the expanders. So on any of those, what came to mind to you, or what examples, or what did you jot down on your papers?
I had maybe it's a combination of the expanders and was it something about fantastic? Or anyways, I had a conversation with a friend where we were kind of talking about the future. And I was mentioning a bit like dreams and this and fears and okay. And then he stopped me and he said, let me ask you a question. And he said, how good can it get? How good can it be? And invited me to ask myself that as I start walking that path. And
Beautiful.
it inspired me a lot because it's like when I tuned into that, it invited me to dream beyond what I had dreamed and to imagine further, and to imagine stuff that maybe I wasn't even considering because I was unconsciously thinking that's not possible.
Exactly. Oh, that's
Yeah.
so perfect. How good can it get? How good could it be? That's a beautiful application. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I
I find myself when you were talking about the moving to sort of this could be fantastic or the potential of stuff, just moments when I've tried to get there, but I just can't quite get there. And stuff that's helped me is like reminding myself about like emotions and feelings and how it's all energy basically, and like recognizing I think that energy can be transmuted. So like if I even if I can't get there, I could maybe get to like the next stepping stone, or like just decide to choose a thought which is a bit more easy or like a bit more upstream to sit with.
Yes. Yes, choose. That is such a beautiful. There's an area of psychology I practice, cognitive behavioral therapy, which is that it's the
Okay.
thought. The single thought could change the outcome. And so,
Mm,
what is one thought, one notch, um, more positive than where I am?
mm,
Or just 1% hopeful. Because you're right, Emma, sometimes it's too much, too lofty.
mm,
It's inaccessible. And I know when I'm having a hard day, even though I talk about these practices all the time, it I'm just kind of digging my heels in the misery, and sometimes I don't want to access them.
mm,
An acronym for those moments of when you feel either just stuck or your feelings are hurt. This one works well on that too. Is the acronym FIX. FIX. F is the feeling. Just name what I'm feeling. I'm feeling negative. I'm feeling miserable. I'm feeling grouchy. I'm feeling stuck. I'm feeling angry. And then the I is I'm not the only one.
mm,
And what I do is kind of go around the planet. There's a woman in Africa feeling like I feel right now. There's a woman in Paris. There's a woman in Spain. There's a woman in Greece. There is, and I just kind of look around at like, there is a woman who is my age on that continent who is in the same feeling right now. And then the X is extra care. So what would make me feel better? And it's interesting when I do this with students, sometimes it's a glass of water, or I want to lay on my couch, or I just need to wrap up in a blanket for a little bit. It's not a need that is some big ask. It is a very simple dose of comfort. It's self-soothing. I think of this with babies. Infants will reach for their security blanket or their stuffed animal or a pacifier. They know how to self-soothe. And adults, we don't do it in healthy ways. We do it in a very in unhealthy ways, usually, of this drink will make me feel better or this pizza will help. But what we're looking for is self-soothing. So just that kind of, what do you need right now? What would make you feel a little bit better? That's a practice when you can't access the lofty stuff. You
mm.
just go to, do you want to lay on the couch and wrap up in your blanket? Okay, let's do that. Yeah,
I've
beautiful.
also just what you mentioned as well. I've also had it before where if ever I've woken up, I thought, oh my, like the world's a mess. I really don't want to do this, filled with dread and stuff. Something that I found helpful as well is like reminding myself like there's someone on the other side of the world right now who's just had the best news ever. They've just got their thing cured, or they got, I don't know, tax rebate or anything, like to make me think that there's lots of other people around the world who are having like excellent days and having like
Mm.
the best news.
I
That's
love that.
I love that, Emma.
And that
That was
connects me with oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I just feel like sometimes we do the opposite, right? We think, oh, there's probably someone having a worse day than me.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think it's so beautiful to kind of shift it and be like, let's celebrate other people's good news. And yeah.
Mhm.
Love that, Emma. And somebody's having a great day, and I will again too. Right? Yeah, it's so much more hopeful. I love that. Or you're right, we minimize our pain with somebody else has it worse, as if that's a good practice to remind ourselves to be grateful. But what Emma's offering us is such a great shift into somebody got the most amazing news, and I will too someday. I love that. David, what were you going to say?
I was going to share about the expanders because it was related to what Emma said, but in the sense of feeling that I don't know, when I hear kind of this negativity from around, I'm like, no, things are going so much better. Like I know so many people that are working to make the world a better place that it's just a matter of time. Actually, it's already happening. It's just slowly and in different phases and in different areas, but it is happening and it has been happening for a long time. That's why today is better than it was 10 years ago. Um, so I think just being connected with this network of people like yourselves that work to make the world a better place, it makes me feel so hopeful. And in
Yeah.
terms of, and there's a couple that I hold close and I connect with them regularly. And what inspired me the most about them is that they trust. It's not that they are running huge NGOs, because I've also got those friends, but they're incredibly stressed. But kind of the people that just trust and are kind of walking the world, delivering their workshops on awareness, for instance, that's one of them. It's like, wow, that's just so beautiful. And she just trusts that things are gonna work out, and they work out somehow. So it's that makes me feel like I can also trust.
Right, right. Beautiful. I have one more for us to do together. And some of you may be familiar with the loving kindness or the metta meditation, metta prayer. The full version of this is usually, it's such a global practice. The idea is you bring somebody you love dearly to mind and you send them well wishes. We'll go down like may they be safe, may they be healthy, may they be well, may they feel loved. And then you bring somebody to mind that you're in conflict with, and you do the same thing, sometimes through gritted teeth and frustration, but you wish them well. And then you do somebody that you might have encountered on a train this morning or at an intersection next to you, or the person who may have served you coffee this morning. You bring them to mind and you send them the same things. And then you do it for yourself. You beam those same things to yourself. So what I would like to do today, just to practice this work, is that you just bring to mind somebody else in this group, and you don't have to say who it is, but just pick somebody in the group that you're going to do this with, and we'll do an abridged version of this. But just put your hands on your heart. Let's practice that, getting more comfortable with that, and close your eyes and bring that person to mind that you chose in our group. Picture them before you and beam them your wishes. Some examples. May they be safe. May they be healthy. May they feel peaceful. May they know they matter. Their work matters. May they feel loved. And now, give those same wishes to yourself. May I be safe. May I be healthy. May I feel peace. May I know I matter. My work matters. May I feel loved. And then return back into the space. Yeah. So you can do that one all day long. It is such a transforming practice to beam other people well-being, but never forget to beam it back to yourself too. The beauty of loving kindness is that you're included in it, and that we're not neglecting our own selves in as we started, your compassionate hearts serve others in a split second. You go to somebody's aid and you're so focused on improving humanity and improving education. Show yourself that same love too. Yeah. I'm watching
Thank you
time
so
to
much.
honor time. Yes. Are there any questions?
Thank you so much, Ginger. That was a beautiful way to close up.
Mhm.
Any
Yeah.
questions for her?
I have a quick question about like when comparison comes in,
Mhm.
and is that like, would you go to the growth mindset or, when you feel like, like they're there and I'm here and, that kind of negativity that you think like your worth or your efforts are just not getting you somewhere.
Yeah.
How does that fit in with like what practices or tools help with that thought mindset neuro pathway?
Yeah. It's such a beautiful question. I'm so glad you asked it, Athena. It's really a little tantrum that our ego is throwing in that moment, right? Of like, think of a toddler who is like, she got the toy and I wanted the toy, right? That's what our brain is doing, is just a little tantrum. And so sometimes that awareness helps a little bit of like, oh, I notice I'm having that tantrum. I'm having that little moment that she got what I wanted. Um, then step two is looking at envy as a message. So we are going to be envious of people who, some people it just all aligns for, and we're beating our heads against the wall trying to figure something out. Look at envy not as a moral failure, that's something we shouldn't feel, but instead as a message of, I want that too. There's something she's got that I want. What is that? Is it the feeling of success that she must feel? Is it the reward from the hard work? Is it that people recognize her and are saying how great she is? What is it? And you get a little more clear on what the envy is trying to tell you about your own journey. And then the third piece of that is I imagine these paths, we all have life paths, and she's on hers, and it's moving a little faster than mine. And that's a bummer, except I'm on my path, and my path has this scenery, and it's this curriculum for me, what I'm here to learn in this lifetime. It's the people that I am about to encounter because of this setback, right? That I can't imagine. It looks like clear sailing for her, but she's just on a different path. That's a different voyage. Um, I'm on mine, and this is the way that it's supposed to unfold. And this, even though it's hard, there's resilience that I'm learning, or there's an inner strength I'm building that's going to serve me well later. So looking at it as I'm just throwing a little tantrum, and you're entitled to have a tantrum. The toddler has tantrums, and it's okay. And sometimes we laugh at the tantrums. But you're a human and somebody got what you wanted. So that's okay. Just hold yourself in that moment. Then what is it that is going on here deeper? What do I want? And then how do I re-engage with my path? This is my path. This is my story.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for this deep answer to a tricky
Yeah.
question. Yeah, so much gratefulness. I think we've got lots of ideas that we're gonna in the second part of this session try to bring down to something specific that maybe we want to integrate in our days. So thank you again, Ginger, for joining us today. It's been a
Yes,
great pleasure.
absolutely. Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for all the work you're all doing for humanity. It definitely matters, and I feel better knowing all of you are on the front lines of love. You really are.